Hey guys, welcome back to another today's video. And in this new today's video, it's going to be a brand new political discussion based video. And in this new discussion based video, it's going to be talking about the overall issue and the overall problem about climate change, about the rapid change and the rapid warming up of our planet. And before I begin, this video was actually recommended to me by one of my viewers. He was this happened a couple months ago. Actually, he recommended this video to me simply because he thought it would be very interesting to hear my thoughts, and he wanted to hear where my overall stance and where he wanted to hear my ideas on how we can solve the overall problem of climate change, of that being caused by human activity. And I decided, well, I'm going to let this vision. I said I will add it to my to-do list, and now guess what? This video is finally coming into fruition now. And this is and before I start on this topic and talking about this topic, and then later my ideas in this video, this is not my biggest strength. This is not my biggest strength. Climate change is not going to be my biggest strength. Talking about, because this is not my overall strength in politics. My overall strength in finding solutions is really like my electoral reform, finding ideas, because I have a great ideas on solving electoral reform. I'm just not a big guy when it comes to climate change, but I will talk about it because I think it's something that we as people, even if it doesn't fit our, how would I put this? Even if it doesn't fit or even if it goes, if it's not part in our comfort zone, and it's not an easy subject for us, we should still do it either way, just to challenge us, because ultimately that makes us better. That makes us better people. It makes us a lot more intelligent. Makes us a lot more broader, in a sense. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this hard topic, take the hard road, and actually try my best to actually talk about this overall issue, share where both sides stand on this issue, and also and share some of the current solutions that are being proposed in Congress, and being proposed in Congress, and the overall actions by our current president, that where he's taking this overall issue when it comes to solving and tackling the issue over climate change, and then overall sharing my ideas. And I know, once again, I will try my best talking about this issue, even though it's my weakness, but it's okay. We all have weaknesses when it comes to any areas in politics, like our current president right now. He has a big strength in COVID-19, tackling COVID-19, but his biggest issue right now is the border crisis. We're always going to have challenges. We're always going to have some weaknesses in some fields in our careers, and how we get better at it is by just doing it, and learning, and just learning by experience, learning from the experienced ones to help you become much more of a broader and much more of an open-minded person. So now let's overall begin and talk about the overall issue of climate change. And this issue has been going on throughout human history. It's been an ongoing issue. It actually arose back during the Industrial Revolution, when people started building factories. And guess what? And now that actually started that started to change, the drastic change in our climate, because the factories started to actually release a lot more CO2 in our planet's atmosphere, and it was taking, and some of that CO2 was getting trapped in our planet's atmosphere, which is known as the greenhouse effect. And we were producing, and now it started, and then as human history began advancing, we started building airplanes. We started building boats that were fueling CO2. We started building more factories, and we started building household essentials that did emit a lot of CO2 into our release CO2 in a lot of released a lot of it in our planet's atmosphere, and that caused the whole problem with pollution but most importantly, drastic changes in our planet's atmosphere. And And I have to, and I overall have to say is, this it is a common problem right now, and it is result and it is the reason, and humans are the overall problem why this overall issue is happening, and we have to address this issue because this is part of human survival. This is part of our survival, um, if we want if we want to preserve our historical institutions, if we want to preserve the historical values that we as a country share, if we want to preserve the overall history and the overall, um, if we want to preserve a lot of our historical land and resources that defines us as a country, and it's something that we need to tackle because we can lose all that simply because of climate change, and 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 this and it's been going, like I already said before, it's been going on for throughout human history during the start of the Industrial Revolution. um, the planet's atmosphere, it's okay for the planet's atmosphere to warm a little bit. We should keep it warm just a little bit, then because that's how life is able to produce. Well, you don't want too much CO2. You don't want, because that's when and because if you have too much CO2, the planet's atmosphere is going to warm up even faster at quicker rates, and we do not want that, because the overall problem why we don't want that is the global temperature rises. Um, and the Earth has been seeing a lot of rises in our global temperature, which is resulting in a warming ocean, which is resulting in shrinking ice sheets, glacial retreats, decreased snow covers, and even most importantly, rising sea levels. And that's going to affect that's going to actually have huge implications on people on the coast, because guess what? And even other people like New York City, for instance, that might actually, if we just if we just ignore the issue of a climate change, um, New York City might be underwater. The people on the coast might be underwater if we don't address this issue. And we do not want that to happen. We want to preserve those institutions. We want to preserve the historical values. And we want to preserve America's land, North America. We want to preserve all that because that means something to us as Americans. That means something to us, that to other people in other countries that wants to preserve their country's land, that wants to preserve that because that's their sovereign. And it's something that we need to tackle, or else we're going to lose that, honestly. And overall, like what I said, it is a fundamental problem throughout human history, because during the start of the Industrial Revolution, because as factories started building and as time went on, we even still to this day we rely a lot on fossil fuels, because in the United States, 81% of our total energy is from oil, coal, and natural gas, which is, and we use all that to heat our homes, to run our vehicles, power our industries, manufacturing, and even provide us with electricity. And this is overall a reason why climate change is becoming that big of a problem. And because we're so dependent on fossil fuels uh, and and even gas to actually run our vehicles to get to work and back, to get to work and get back to home. And that's one of the biggest problems. And it's why we're in this predicament, and why rapid change in our climate is becoming an exponential threat. And it's something we as a country need to resolve, and even the entire world needs to resolve. Even in their countries need to resolve, take steps in regulation, and really having leaders to lead their countries and taking swift action, and really transition just a little, just not all of it away from fossil fuels, but transition just a little bit every time, to actually move it into the realm of using many energy sources, not just fossil fuels, where we can use other energy sources, because there's other energy sources that are being invented out there. And I think the government needs to support all that. But not to get off topic here, and that's one of the solutions that's being proposed by Republicans and even Democrats. Yes, and I know the media. I understand. People think Republicans are climate change deniers. Well, technically that's not actually all true, but that they're also for fighting they're also for climate, they're also for addressing the issue of climate change. They just have totally different ideas on the issue. And 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 it and some of the solutions that are being produced, um, even on this website, one solution is solar impulse labels is granted to innovative solutions to fight climate that meet higher standards of sustainability and profitability. That's one of the solutions, but the most ideal solution that's being proposed is the Clean Air Act. Um, this was passed in the year of 1970, which is a comprehensive federal law that regulates air emissions from stationary and mobile sources. Among other things, this law authorizes EPA to establish national ambient air quality standards to protect public health and public welfare and to regulate emissions of hazardous air pollutants. And the overall goal towards the act was to set and achieve NAAQS in every state by 1975 in order to address the public health and welfare crisis, health and welfare risk posed by certain widespread air pollutants. And the overall, in section 1 of 12, the sources of this pollution that the Clean Air Act addresses is the emission of air pollutants. Prior to 1990, CAA established a risk-based program under which only a few standards were developed. The 1990 Clean Air Act Amendment revised Section 112 to first require issuance, I could be pronouncing it wrong, of technology-based standards for major sources in certain area sources. Major sources are defined as a stationary source or group of stationary sources that emit or have the potential to emit 10 years per year or more of a hazardous air pollutants, or 25 per year or more of a combination of hazardous air pollutants. An area source is any stationary source that is not a major source. And these are some of the regulations, some of the acts and laws that were passed throughout our country's time that aims to address the amount of pollution that's been going on throughout our country. And it's one of the areas that our government and even other governments have taken to really regulate and address the issue over climate change and regulate other air pollutants like fossil fuels to make it where we can live in a country where our children can enjoy all of the clean air and all of the wonder beauties of our world and all the green in our world. And it's one of the regulations, it's one of the laws that have been passed, and the most ideal principle that has been taking place since the year of 2019 is when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and even Ed Markey proposed a bill known as the Green New Deal. This is essentially the main goal to the Green New Deal aims to meet 100% of the United States' power and its energy demand through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. The proponents of this position hope to accomplish this goal within 10 years of implementation. And I do agree only with one thing, and that is like advancing on the technology and really using many energy sources, using not just fossil fuels or energy that has emission that emits a lot of its energy into our planet's atmosphere, like what fossil fuels do, but using more cleaner energy, using a lot more renewable energy that protects our planet, protects our environment, and will slowly start where our planet won't be warming up at fast rates anymore. And the Green New Deal aims to create a zero, as it states, aims to create a zero-emission society by moving away from fossil fuels and transitioning more into a clean, renewable community, using clean and renewable energy. And just like that, it works with farmers to eliminate all types of pollution, which is essentially a vital point of the Green New Deal, is to work with farmers to create a system that promotes farming without pollution and greenhouse gases. This aims to keep farmers working while reducing emissions. And as well, Like what I do overall agree with the statement, the Green New Deal will eliminate deaths caused by global climate change. And this is overall true. And because throughout, what I've been like in one video I saw today, um, is that thanks to human activity with a rapid change in our climate, other countries are experiencing abnormal weather, are experiencing weather that they have never experienced in their countries before, because it doesn't make sense to live in that type of environment for them, because that's not their normal environment, and their environment is in their normal and ordinary environment is now changing because of climate change, and it's something that we need to address now, or it's going to cause deaths, because like we might see a lot more rainfall, a lot more wildfires, different dangerous weathers like more flash floods in coastal regions where they might be later underwater at some point. And it's something that we need to tackle as a country, or else tackle as a country, and even as a world, and even all of our country, and even all those countries need to tackle, so we can preserve all of our lands, we can preserve our territory, we can preserve our historical values, we can preserve the historical locations that have taken place throughout history, so we can preserve it for the next generation. And but just like that, there are those are the only benefits. Those are the benefits that I've listed out with the Green New Deal. But the drawbacks overall is this is what the main argument is, what the conservatives make, and even Republicans make, is that it will increase the deficit in the United States. And I have to overall agree with this. Let me see if I can find it over here. It should be somewhere. It's somewhere. Let me see. The center in February, in February 2019, the center-right American Action Forum estimated that the plan could cost $51 through $93 trillion over the next decade. And this is just going to, and I have to agree with Republicans on this one, this is just going to increase the deficit, national debt, even more. We already have like a $23 trillion national debt. It's going to increase the debt even more, and that's going to be an overall problem. While I am for protecting our environment and addressing the overall issue over climate change, we have to also be fiscally moral and fiscally responsible to how we spend money. And even though Republicans have never so far, currently in our current political times, they didn't show. I think they have. I know they didn't. They haven't shown that they're the fiscally conservative party, which I understand. Which I overall believe that we need a fiscally conservative party, and that's why I'm supporting other third-party candidates that are fiscally conservative, like Greg Mealy, for instance, that is running for governor of New Jersey as the Libertarian Party. But Republicans have a point on it, even though they haven't shown that they're fiscally conservative. That they lost all their reputation of being fiscally moral. But this is the problem, because this is going to cost too much. That's going to put a lot of burden on our taxpayers and even the next generation, because guess what? They're going to have to pay off a lot of those debt through high amounts of taxes, and that's what's going to cause all that. That's one of the biggest problems. And I understand money shouldn't be the object to tackling the issue of climate change, but it's going to cause a huge problem because prices are going to start rising, and another big problem is inflation. Inflation is going to become a really big problem if we keep spending and spending and spending and spending, and that's going to lead to the government printing and printing and printing money. It's going to the point our money value, currency, won't be worth anything anymore. It's going to be a problem, and I understand that money shouldn't be the object of addressing the issue over climate change and protecting our planet's atmosphere and protecting our planet from even warming up the planet even more. But money is an object if we want to pass legislation, if we want to change our society for the better. It's just money is the whole principle in our world today, in our currency. And that's the overall problem that many Republicans and even conservatives and right-wing people make with the Green New Deal, and why they disagree with it is that it will increase the deficit by even huge and enormous amounts. And overall, just like that, I think like another big problem, this is where I can, is that Biden, and but to add on to this, like as we saw, I think the overall problem, one of the reasons why I don't agree with Democrats fully on their overall stance on climate change and addressing the issue, is that they want to end fracking. They want, because like what the Green New Deal said, it aims to create a zero-emission society, meaning transitioning away entirely from fossil fuels and into into cleaner and renewable energy. And while that sounds good on paper, in my opinion, fossil fuels have been the most essential part in all of our lives and even all of society. It's very efficient to all Americans. And as much as I'd like, as much as I will love to see America using a lot of energy sources, it's just not right now. Those cleaner energy sources is not really efficient right now, like solar energy, solar cars. That's going to be, the technology is not there for it right now. They need a lot more research and development, a lot more time to actually keep making those technologies a lot more advanced. And I think that's, and this is why I disagree with President Biden when he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. I think the Keystone XL pipeline was a mistake. I think that would help us, make us a lot more energy independent, a lot more less dependent from other countries, relying on other countries' energy sources and oil, like in other countries. Because like what we're seeing right now, and currently, is that gas prices under the Biden administration are increasing, and I think that's a fault to him, and by canceling completely halting the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. It's causing, it's one of the reasons why gas prices are going, because there's a shortage of gas and oil because of Biden actually halting the construction on this pipeline. And I think that's a big problem. And I agree with Democrats that we should transition a little bit to clean energy, and maybe we should regulate fossil fuels a little bit. This is just, in my opinion, not a good solution, and why I disagree with them. Because honestly, in my opinion, we can still use fossil fuels. We can still regulate some fossil fuels, how much. We can still regulate just a little bit of fossil fuels, a little bit, to actually address to slowly address the issue of a climate change, as we keep researching and developing, as long as we are supporting, as long as the government is supporting a lot of clean energy supporting a lot of clean energy companies and firms, and helping them and giving them patents, subsidizing on those clean energy sources, and promoting more clean energy sources and jobs to really help them strengthen and keep advancing technology to the point it does become efficient, just like fossil fuels, where one day we can have solar power cars, we can have more vehicles that are powered by clean energy. Because right now the technology is not there for it. And in my opinion, fossil fuels are going to still, in my opinion, should be the main focus for us, but we can slowly move away just a little bit from that, and we can start advancing clean energy. We can start advancing those clean energy sectors. By subsidizing them, by promoting them, by supporting them, by the government ending all support, by no longer supporting any fossil fuel corporation, by saying we're not going to subsidize any more of these oil companies. We're going to actually address the overall issue, where we're going to support more clean energy. We're going to promote all that, incentivize all Americans to start caring for the environment and to start caring for all of that. And while that time, we can still use fossil fuels as we keep moving the ball bit by bit to actually start caring for our overall environment as well. in my opinion, the small things matter. If you go grocery shopping and it's in walking distance, actually walk for once. Actually walk that might actually walk to your grocery store if it's in walking distance, because ultimately, in my opinion, that the small things matter, because if you do things every day, the small things like recycling, the cleaning, and using a lot more things that are a lot more renewable, you are caring for the environment even more. You're releasing less CO2 in our planet's atmosphere, and the small things ultimately matter. And if you guys can do the small things, the small things by just relying less on these CO2, less on fossil fuels that get you through your day-to-day lives, you're truly addressing the overall issue of climate change. Like, again, if you can do the small things right, you will do the big things right. You will do the big legislation right by helping us transition away from fossil fuels, by helping us transition away from clean energy. The small things matter, and the big thing. And if you can do the small things, you can do the big things, as one guy once said. And ultimately, we can still use fossil, and this goes back to my point with fossil fuels. We can still use fossil fuels right now, but as long as we keep up the pressure on these clean energy firms bit by bit, and as they keep advancing the ball, advancing the technology, then those clean energy sectors, a lot of those clean energy sources like wind, like solar, like nuclear energy, and so on, will at some point become just as efficient as fossil fuels, to the point we can start relying on them even more, where we can start decreasing a lot of the production. We can start relying less on fossil fuels and more on cleaner energy to produce our goods and services, to produce our manufacturing, to transition from those manufacturing factors relying on fossil fuels, transitioning it more into the realm of cleaner energy. And I think that will overall play a role in that. And now, since you heard the Democrat side and my point of view, where I overall stand on this issue, and even just a little bit of the Republican issue, now let's actually talk about my overall idea on how I think, in my opinion, how we can address the whole issue over climate change. So here I'm introducing the American People and Climate Act. So the American People and Climate Act aims to tackle the overwhelming issue of the warming of our planet, while also in the meantime protecting the many blue-collar workers that work in the fossil fuel industry, and helping them, give them financial incentives and motivation to be retrained to work in more clean energy jobs, and an incentive to move to using cleaner energy, while also making us more energy independent and us relying on many energy sources to power our homes, cars, and all of the important essentials that everyday Americans need. Like what I said before, this act will resume the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, meaning this will revert President Joe Biden's position on what he did by holding it, and it will this act will resume it. And overall, in my opinion, this goes back to what I've said before in the previous part of this video. It's okay that we use fossil fuels just bit by bit. It's okay if we use that, because right now, cleaner energy right now is not that advanced, not that efficient enough to actually make it where it can be a reliable energy source for all of us. It's okay if we use fossil fuels just right now, as long as we keep promoting, as long as cleaner energy companies like solar, like air, and like nuclear energy, that become a lot more, where they can start still researching and developing their energy source to the point it does become more advanced, where it can be a lot more efficient, just like fossil fuels. It can be more efficient, where it can become a reliable energy source. But in the meantime, we have to rely on fossil fuels. We got to rely on those type of blue collar jobs where we are still providing millions and thousands of these blue collar workers with good paying jobs to be able to support themselves and their families for the time being. And right now, it's okay if we do that. And ultimately, in my opinion, they're also there to make us more energy independent and make us even less dependent from other countries' oil and gas, like which is essentially making us less dependent from those Middle East countries. And once again, it's okay if we use fossil fuels just a little bit by bit, as long as we are still promoting and incentivizing clean energy companies to keep doing researching and developing their source to the point it does become more advanced and much more efficient, where one day it can be more reliable, like fossil fuels, where we can start consuming more clean energy and less fossil fuels at some point. And overall, this act will ultimately eliminate subsidies for fossil fuel and gas and oil companies. This ultimately means the government will no longer support these corporations that will no longer support these fossil fuel corporations, will no longer support these gas and oil companies in terms of money power. They are now on their own, because thanks to this act now, we are no longer supporting them anymore. They will be on their own. We will still provide. They will still have freedom to remain in business, meaning they can still make money off of consumers, but we're no longer supporting them. And this is going to another part of the act. Subsidy assess patents for clean energy business. This act shall subsidize on clean energy businesses to give American consumers and producers more of an incentive to make the switch to cleaner energy, which will in return allow the producers of those clean energy companies to use that financial support by the government to continue their research and development on their clean energy sources, in which it will help make clean energy sources much more efficient and advanced to get all Americans the financial incentive to make the switch to cleaner energy. The government shall give out patents to clean energy companies to give them exclusive rights to making this clean energy as a means for them to do their research and to continually develop their energy source to make it much more advanced, to the point more and more U.S. citizens can start moving away from gas as their main fuel to power their automobiles and transition to using cleaner and renewable energy. And this overall backs up my point, is that we can still have fossil fuels. We can still let people use fossil fuels as their main fuel for their everyday lives, for their household essentials, for their automobiles, for even our other companies that need fossil fuels for manufacturing automobiles, to manufacturing all sorts of things in our industries, and even for our planes as well, until we can start developing new and cleaner and renewable energy, where cleaner energy can become much more efficient, much more advanced, to the point it can be a reliable energy source where we can start persuading more and more Americans to move away from fossil fuels and transition more into the realm of cleaner energy, to run for their everyday, where they can rely more on cleaner energy for their everyday lives, for their household essentials, for their automobiles, for all the factory, for those business owners to use to manufacture their goods and services and products. And this is there to really incentivize scientific research, much more research and development for firms to continue to advance their technologies, to advance their clean energy source, to make it much more efficient and much more reliable to the American consumer. And overall, and another point is that we will propose, this is essentially bringing in forth a gas tax. And back what we learned in economics, and even what I learned in my economics course, is about externalities. And this is designed to discourage a negative externality on our communities and get Americans to rely on many energy sources and not just fossil fuels. And this is ultimately something good for us. If we can discourage, if more and more Americans if we can get more and more Americans to rely less on gas and more on many energy sources like cleaner energy, it can help address the issue over climate change. Because if we can balance the scales where There's a little bit of people using gas, a little bit of people using oil, a little bit of people using electric, a little bit of people using nuclear energy, a little bit of people using air and solar power. We can overall we can slowly end the rapid warming up of our planet. Meaning the rapid warming of our planet will slowly will trend down. It will decrease. Now the planet will be warming up just a little bit, and that's something we want. And that's something we want overall. If we want to preserve our land, if we want to preserve the historical value that we love our continent, that we love our land for, and if we want to preserve all of our historical locations for the next generation of people. As well, another benefit is educational benefits for the blue-collar fossil fuel workers. And this is, and back in my one of my videos, when I talked about making healthcare affordable and free for everyday Americans, I talked about the idea of because if you guys remember, I talked about the major issue. One of the major issues towards healthcare is that there's a shortage of physicians and doctors. And how my overall solution was to give them benefits like Medicaid and Medicare, incentivizing more people to join the healthcare industry by if you guys become doctors and physicians, you can have more healthcare. So you can have healthcare benefits like being eligible for Medicaid and Medicare, and this is ultimately back up to my point with educational benefits for blue-collar fossil fuel workers. They get educational benefits for going back to school, going back to college, and helping them get retrained and re-educated to empower them, to give them the motivation and encourage them to make the switch from fossil fuel jobs to working in the clean energy jobs sector. But they're not going to be forced, because like what I said before, this act will resume the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, and it's going to be more of a choice for them, because we all know not all workers are going to take that not all workers are going to be empowered and encouraged to do that, because they might be already too old to go back to school and get re-educated to actually transition into another job. They might be too old already. And that's an overall. This is an overall plus, because this is just going to be a choice. It's not going to be something forced upon these blue-collar workers. It's just going to be a choice, but we're empowering and encouraging them to actually make the switch from fossil fuel jobs to working in the clean energy sector. As well, this also increases taxes on gas oil corporations, because this will discourage more and more Americans to consume less of it, to show that we're no longer supporting these fossil fuel corporations. We're supporting cleaner energy sectors. We're leveling the playing field, and we're allowing the clean energy sector to become we're allowing that we're reducing the power that these gas and oil corporations have in our country, and really balancing that where they're a lot more on a level playing field with these clean energy jobs and with these clean energy businesses. And we're going to support these clean energy people, because ultimately, in my opinion, we should be relying on many energy sources. As well, this is also going to incentivize and allow all Americans to live off the grid when it comes to powering their homes, like their lights, water, and so much more. And this is ultimately, in my opinion, being a good thing, because we're going to incentivize Americans to actually, let me see if I can find it. It should be somewhere. Since we're going to be incentivizing Americans to really, to actually give them that financial motivation and incentive to make the switch to clean energy jobs, to use clean energy for their day-to-day lives, to power so much of their household essentials. We're also going to we're going to really incentivize and allow all Americans to live off the grid and be more independent from our public goods, which ultimately is a good plus, because because we're going to be teaching, we can teach all Americans and really incentivize them to use more clean energy, to really live off clean, not just to live entirely off of it, but to live a little bit on fossil fuels and a little bit on clean energy. So we're ultimately, in my opinion, addressing the overall issue over climate change. And as well, this is something that the Democrats support, and even Republicans as well, modernizing our country's infrastructure to really address the overall issue over climate change. Meaning, this is going to invest in more in the construction of cleaner energy sources like solar power, like wind, like electric, like nuclear generators that will effectively reduce carbon emission in our planet's atmosphere. This will ultimately create brand new construction jobs for our blue-collar workers, because now we will have more and more construction workers getting paid, getting hired to really build these generators, build these generators like that will collect wind, where we can use it to power all of it, where everyday Americans can power their essentials that they need to survive. As well, this act also plans to cut carbon emissions by 20% and put necessary regulations where they can still remain in business, but putting less CO2 in our planet's atmosphere. And as well, it's all about investing in modernizing transportation, such as high-speed rails and clean energy sources like electric, solar power, and nuclear energy to power or refuel our vehicles that we use to drive to get to work. But as well, we're still allowing Americans to use fossil fuels, but we're incentivizing them and trying to motivate them to really start making the switch to cleaner energy and start caring for the environment, so we can preserve the historical locations that our country experienced throughout its history. So we can save all those locations. We can save those iconic natural barriers that Theodore Roosevelt preserved, those national parks that Theodore Roosevelt established throughout American history, where we can preserve all that for the next generation. So overall, let me hear where you guys overall stand on this issue of climate change. Do you overall agree with my solutions and where I stand on this issue? And please be very respectful about it in the comment section below. And ultimately, yet again, I'm going to repeat myself again. Share your overall ideas on how we can tackle climate change, and do you guys agree with the American People and Climate Act? Do you think it's the best idea, or do you think something else? Do you think another solution can solve this crisis of can solve this rapid crisis that's going on around the globe? Let's be honest, yet again, let's be very respectful and civil, and show to the two-party system, like the Republicans, like the Democrats, that we are better than them, and we will be far better than them, because ultimately we are all going to be agents of change, and we're all going to be agents of change that will reimagine the promise of America for generations to come. So share where you overall stand on the issue of climate change, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you don't like my opinion and you think I left out important pieces of information, feel free to disagree by disliking this video. I don't care. Just share your overall opinion, because I know I will respect everybody's opinion where they stand on any issue. But yet again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, this is Young Centrist, and I am out.